How can I score high on the TOEFL? The first and most important tip is to know lots of academic words. If you have a large vocabulary, you're halfway to achieving a stellar TOEFL score. If your vocabulary is limited, no matter how many strategies you learn, you'll still end up scoring 22 or 23 on each section of the test. So in this video, we're going to talk about important words and phrases that will help you ace the test. We'll start with the essential words you'll frequently see in each section, then discuss the most common advanced words you should know, do a vocabulary test to see how ready you are to take the TOEFL, talk about academic words you'll typically need to answer the questions correctly, teach you to guess the meaning of words by using their prefixes, discuss vocabulary for astronomy, history, biology, and zoology, and finally, talk about key linking words for the speaking and writing sections. By the end of this video, you'll be fully equipped with the vocabulary you need to succeed on the test. You can then take some practice tests. I'm sure you'll see many of the words we've learned. Also, don't forget to let me know how many words from this class you already knew and which ones were unfamiliar. If your TOEFL test is coming up and you want to get feedback on your essays and speaking responses, click on the link below. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more test-taking tips and tricks, and click the bell icon to be notified when the next video comes out. Without further ado, let's get started. One of the reasons so many students fail the TOEFL is because their vocabulary isn't good enough. You need to have a wide range of lexes to succeed in every section of the test. In fact, if you're aiming for 100 plus, you should be well acquainted with advanced vocabulary. These are the complex, tricky words that many students are so afraid of. Think about it. You're doing the reading section, and then you get a question like this, and your brain gets all busy and stressed out trying to figure out what the right answer might be. By the way, if you think you know the answer to this question, let me know in the comments below. The correct answer is at the end of the video. Advanced vocabulary is not only important for TOEFL reading, you'll also hear such words in the lectures and conversations in the listening section. And you'll come across them in the writing and speaking sections. Test yourself. Do you know words like supercilious, exacerbate, ubiquitous, myriad, and zealous? If some of them are unfamiliar to you, you should work on expanding your advanced and academic vocabulary. We've prepared a free PDF file with the top 100 words for TOEFL that you need. These words will help you improve your score in every section. You can find the link to the PDF in the description below. Now, when it comes to learning new words, another important aspect that can prevent you from getting the score you want, especially in the writing and speaking sections, is the way you use these words. Some students simply learn a list of advanced or so-called fancy words and try to use them everywhere. They think that the more sophisticated vocabulary they can cram into their spoken and written answers, the better. However, this will not help you improve your score and may even lower it. Think about this sentence. Having diligently engaged in rigorous intellectual pursuits, he assiduously devoted himself to the arduous task of assimilating copious amounts of knowledge pertinent to the impending examination, thereby fostering a profound sense of self-assurance in his cognitive faculties. Does that sound natural? I don't think so. It would be much simpler and more natural to just say, he studied hard for the test and felt confident in his preparation. Or, he crammed for the test and felt confident in his preparation. So, to speak and write effectively, you should not only know advanced words, but also use them well. In this video, we'll discuss 10 advanced words and phrases you must know to succeed on the TOEFL test. If your TOEFL test is approaching and you feel you need more guidance and feedback, you can also take our TOEFL preparation course and learn everything you need to know about the test in just a few days. The promo code link is in the description below. Without further ado, let's get started. The first word on our vocabulary list is adversely. which means in a negative or harmful way. We often use it with the verb to affect. To adversely affect means to influence something negatively. For example, if you were talking about eating breakfast for question 1 of the speaking section, you might say, skipping breakfast can adversely affect your energy level for the rest of the day. We can also use it in a more formal context. Let's say business. In the writing section, you might write something like, the economic downturn has adversely affected the company's profits, resulting in layoffs. The reason I like this collocation is that it's very universal, so you can use it for many topics. Lots of things can be adversely affected. Word number 2 is foster. To foster something is to encourage its development. I can foster innovation, creativity, a sense of community, a positive environment, growth, or collaboration. For example, the school wants to foster creativity among its students. This means that the school supports and encourages creativity and wants its students to be more creative. Talking about work, I might say, we should foster cooperation among employees, not competition. The next word is also one of my favorites. It's implement. When we implement something, we put it into practice. In other words, we adopt it or start using it. Some typical collocations with this verb are implement a new strategy, implement changes, implement policies, plans, or recommendations. In the reading section, you might see a sentence like this. It's important to implement safety measures to protect workers. This means that we should introduce safety measures to protect workers. Word number 4 is ubiquitous. A thing that is ubiquitous is everywhere. When you think of Venice, you immediately think of crowds of tourists everywhere. Well, you can call them ubiquitous. Ubiquitous tourists in Venice. We can say ubiquitous presence, ubiquitous use, ubiquitous technology. You could start your entry for the writing for an academic discussion assignment with this sentence. Smartphones have become ubiquitous in modern society. They are ubiquitous. They are everywhere. Or the ubiquitous presence of the internet has changed the way we access information. Next is the verb thrive. It means to grow, develop, or be successful. What can thrive? Businesses, industries, plants, and cultures can thrive. This means that they are successful and can grow. In the lecture about plants, you could hear such a sentence. Some plants thrive in direct sunlight, while others prefer shade. We can also say, your business began to thrive after you implemented new marketing strategies. 6. Indispensable, meaning absolutely necessary. When something is indispensable, it's so good or important that you can't do without it. A person can also be indispensable. This means that you can't do anything without him or her. Typical collocations: an indispensable tool, an indispensable member, an indispensable companion, the one I cannot do without. The most common collocation, in my opinion, is an indispensable part of something. If you're writing an essay, you often want to write that something is, was, or has become very important. You can use this collocation instead. Let's look at the sentence. AI has become important to people. Is it clear? Yes, it is. Is it advanced? Not really. Well, let's change that. AI has become an indispensable part of most people's lives. The new sentence sounds much better. This is actually one of the exercises I like to do with my students. I would usually come up with a bunch of simple sentences or take some examples from their essays. Then I would ask them to paraphrase those sentences using some of the new words we've learned. I highly recommend that you do the same. Using the new word as much as possible will help you become more familiar with it and use it more confidently in your writing and speaking. 7. Affluent. affluent means having a lot of money or many valuable things. Someone who is affluent is rich or wealthy. We can say an affluent neighborhood, an affluent family, or an affluent lifestyle. In question 1 of the speaking section, you often have to answer a question in 45 seconds. In this time, you usually have to give some examples to support your answer. You might say, I remember my friend used to live in an affluent neighborhood. 8. Alleviate, which means to make something bad, such as pain or problems, less severe. What can we alleviate? As I said, it has to be something bad. So, we can alleviate pain, alleviate suffering, alleviate stress, alleviate symptoms, or anxiety. The medication helped alleviate the patient's chronic pain. Listening to music can alleviate stress and improve mood. 9. Lucrative. Something that is lucrative usually makes a lot of money or a large profit. What can be lucrative? Business, job, career, offer, contract, deal. If your business is lucrative, it's very profitable. Investing in real estate can be a lucrative business if done wisely. She left her job to pursue a more lucrative career in finance. This is the word you'll see most often on the TOEFL reading and listening sections. Finally, the last word on our list is the one we had at the beginning of the video, resurgence. It's a new increase in activity or interest in a particular subject that has been forgotten for some time. Let's say an actor or singer was very popular for a while, but years went by and everyone forgot about them. Then, when they come back with a new movie or song, we witness the resurgence of their career. That's what happened with Miley Cyrus, for example. We saw her resurgence with the hit song Flowers. So the correct answer to this question is B, comeback. Let me know in the comments if you got it right. So, these are the 10 advanced words you need to know to succeed on the TOEFL test. If I were asked, what's the most important thing you can do to succeed on the TOEFL? I'd definitely say it's to expand your vocabulary. The more words you know, the easier it will be for you to do well on each section of the test. In the reading and listening sections, knowing more words will help you understand better, which will give you a chance to answer more questions correctly. A large vocabulary will also help you speak more fluently in the speaking section. You won't have to pause to decide which word to use. You'll also be able to get more detail from the text and audio materials for the integrated speaking questions. Finally, I think you'll agree that knowing specialized and advanced vocabulary will also help you in the writing section. Now, the next question is, what words should I learn? Number 1, campus vocabulary. Many lectures and conversations in both listening and speaking sections deal with the situations that may occur on campus. So, knowing words like academic advisor, prerequisites, dorms, roommate, bunk bed, transcripts, A students, transfer, and elective courses is a must. 2, academic vocabulary. These are words that appear frequently in academic texts. You'll encounter them in the writing and reading sections, and they also appear frequently in the speaking and listening sections of the test. For example, individual, research, consistent, area, regulations, perceived, emphasis, undertake, and so on. By the way, we have created a free PDF with the top 100 words for the TOEFL test you need. So feel free to check it out by clicking the link in the description below. 3. Idiomatic vocabulary. Anything idiomatic refers to expressions that cannot be understood by their literal meaning. A common misconception that many students have is that idiomatic vocabulary is all about using idioms. The truth is that it's highly unlikely that you'll need many idioms on the day of the test. In fact, if your English is idiomatic, it means that you use expressions that are natural and correct. Idiomatic vocabulary really helps in the speaking section. It allows you to convey the same message in a shorter and more natural way. For example, what's the word we use to describe something that really annoys us? We use the word pet peeve. Smoking is one of my pet peeves. I hate it when people smoke around me. Another example is a soft-spoken person. That's the person who has a quiet or gentle voice. Some people have a loud voice, some people have a soft voice, and these people are soft-spoken. Now, the last and most important category is advanced vocabulary. Do you know such words as occur, accumulate, collide, copious, divert, frivolous, and hindrance? All of them are examples of advanced vocabulary. Advanced vocabulary is a game changer on the TOEFL and pretty much every other language test out there. It's extremely helpful in every section of the test. In fact, studying advanced vocabulary is the fastest way to improve your TOEFL score. And that's the kind of vocabulary we'll be working on in today's lesson. In this video, we'll discuss 20 advanced words you must know to succeed on the TOEFL test. If your TOEFL test is approaching and you feel you need more guidance and feedback, you can also take our TOEFL preparation course and have your speaking and writing skills evaluated. The promo code link is in the description below. If you are a textbook kind of person, check out our brand new Mastering the TOEFL Test Prep book. It's a comprehensive guide to the test that'll teach you everything you need to know about the TOEFL test in just a few days. Without further ado, let's get started. I suggest we play a game. As you watch this lesson, pause the video every time you see a new word and try to guess its meaning. Put a plus next to the words you got right and a minus next to the words you got wrong. Then count how many of the words you know. If you got them all, write winner in the comments. Otherwise, tell me how many words you got right. The first word is condescending. Listen carefully. Condescending. The Latin prefix con means with, and the Latin word for descend means down. So when someone is described as condescending, it means that they act in a way that makes others feel inferior or looked down upon. For example, imagine a teacher who talks to students as if they're not very smart or important. That's a condescending attitude, and it can make people feel small or unappreciated. So when you're condescending, you're looking down on someone. Let's do a little test. In the reading section, you might get a vocabulary question that looks like this. The manager's condescending tone made the new employees feel unwelcome and discouraged. The word condescending in the sentence is closest in meaning to A, deplorable, B, deceptive, C, haughty, and D, blessed. The correct answer is C, haughty. Write it down. Condescending, haughty, arrogant. They're all synonyms. Now, let's talk about the verb to obtain. To obtain means to get something that is not so easy to have. You can obtain knowledge, information, permission, a license, a document, or a loan. You wouldn't say you obtained a pair of socks unless they were unique. So, it's a verb we use in formal contexts. A small test. To obtain knowledge on the subject, researchers conducted extensive experiments and analyzed the resulting data. The word obtain in this sentence is closest in meaning to A, get, B, accord, C, astonish, D, depend. A is correct. Next is emerge. When something emerges, it means it comes into view or becomes known. Think of a talented musician emerging on the music scene. After years of hard work, their talent finally emerges for all to see. When I think of the word emerge, I immediately think of emerging technologies. All these new types of technologies that are popping up or appearing all the time. Give me some examples of your favorite emerging technologies in the comments. Time for a test. Obviously, C is correct. Appear is the closest synonym for emerge. Now, let's delve into transcendence. This is a fancy word that means going beyond ordinary limits or surpassing expectations. Picture a breathtaking painting or a mesmerizing piece of music that takes you to another world. That's the kind of transcendence we're talking about, where something becomes so extraordinary that it surpasses everything else. Remember the movie Transcendence with Johnny Depp? It's a sci-fi film exploring artificial intelligence. In the movie, Johnny Depp's character, Dr. Will Castor, uploads his consciousness into a computer, which makes him extremely powerful. So we see how he transcends or surpasses human limitations, blurring the line between man and machine. Moving on. Word number 5 is crucial. When something is crucial, it's extremely important or necessary for success. Just like getting enough sleep is crucial to maintaining good health, or studying is crucial to doing well in your exams. How would you answer this question? A is correct. Crucial and essential are two words we use when something is very important. You will see them a lot on the TOEFL reading section, so make sure you have them on your list. Advantageous is our next word. When something is advantageous, it means it's beneficial or helpful. For example, learning a second language can be advantageous for finding job opportunities, making new friends, and experiencing different cultures. I can use it in the writing section. For example, living close to work can be advantageous because it saves time and money on commuting. We'll stop with the tests here, since you pretty much have an idea of what vocabulary questions look like on the TOEFL. However, let me know in the comments if you like the idea of tests. Now, let's talk about the word frivolous. When something is frivolous, it means it's not serious or important. It lacks seriousness. Buying expensive things you don't need instead of saving money for important things like education or emergencies is an example of frivolous spending. If someone is frivolous, they shouldn't be taken seriously because they're always fooling around and never getting anything done. Frivolous is practically the opposite of essential. Spending money on frivolous luxuries instead of saving for the future can lead to financial problems. Our next word is terrestrial. This is one of my favorite words because very few of my students know it. So I like to include it in the matching assignments I create. Terrestrial simply means related to the Earth or its inhabitants. So if it's terrestrial, you'll find it on Earth. If it's extraterrestrial, you'll find it coming from a UFO. We humans are terrestrial creatures, which means we live and thrive on this planet and depend on its resources for our survival. If you don't know the word thrive, you can watch this video where we discussed more advanced vocabulary necessary to ace the TOEFL test. In TOEFL reading, you'll often see texts about terrestrial animals. Terrestrial animals are mammals, birds, and reptiles that live on land. Moving on to mandatory. When something is mandatory, it means it's required by rule or law. It's obligatory. Wearing a seat belt is mandatory for all passengers in a car to ensure everyone's safety. I hear this word a lot in conversations on both the speaking and listening sections of the test. You'll see something like this. It's mandatory for students to attend classes regularly to maintain their enrollment status. Some nice synonyms are compulsory and obligatory. Just recently, I saw the word compulsory on one of the reading tests, so make sure you have it on your list. 10. Outer. This word refers to something that is outside, external. For example, astronauts wear spacesuits to protect themselves from the harsh conditions of outer space. Escalate is our next word. When you see this word, think of an escalator that takes you quickly to the next floor. This word usually has a negative connotation, so it's usually something bad that escalates. For example, prices or conflicts can escalate. Imagine a disagreement between friends that escalates into a heated argument. That's when things get more intense and serious. Example sentence: the conflict between the two companies began to escalate, raising concerns about the possibility of cooperation. 12. Plummet. The verb plummet means to fall sharply, like eagles that plummet toward the earth in search of prey, or school attendance that plummets when there is a flu outbreak. For example, the stock market may plummet after bad news about the company's financial situation is announced. Example sentence: temperatures plummet overnight, causing icy conditions on the roads. Now let's talk about the word adolescent. Simply put, this is just a fancy word for teenager or teen. Someone who is no longer a child, but not yet an adult. Sample sentence: she doesn't understand the emotional problems of adolescence. Let's keep going. What about futile? When something is futile, it means it's incapable of producing a useful result. It's pointless. Trying to change someone's mind when they are set in their decision can feel futile, because they are unlikely to budge. You can say, it's futile to argue with him when he is in a bad mood. He won't listen to reason. Again, this is a very common word in the TOEFL reading section. Be prepared to see it a lot. Moving on to impact. This word can be used as either a verb, to impact, or a noun, impact. It refers to the effect or influence of one thing on another. For example, the construction of a new road could have a positive impact on the local economy by creating jobs. Note that when this word is a noun, it's followed by the preposition on. Have a positive impact on the local economy. But as a verb, it doesn't need a preposition. Hearing aids may be able to impact mental health positively. This is one of the synonyms for the verbs to influence and to affect. Indispensable is next. When something is indispensable, it means it's absolutely necessary, essential, something you can't do without. Water, for example, is indispensable to human survival. We can't live without it. Let's review. Crucial, essential, indispensable. All these words mean something is very important. In the writing section, you can include such a sentence in your essay. Good communication skills are indispensable for success in both personal and professional life. Now, let's talk about the word supercilious. Listen carefully. Supercilious. What do you think this word means? It's used to describe someone who acts or looks like they think they're superior to others. Imagine a person who always acts like he or she is better than everyone else. That's a supercilious attitude. Her supercilious attitude made it difficult for her to make friends. A quick vocabulary test for this word. Be careful when answering. Well, they're all right. That was a trap. If you watch the lesson carefully, you remember that a condescending person, like a supercilious person, is someone who acts or behaves as if they are superior to others. Haughty and arrogant are the other two synonyms. So, congratulations! We've learned so many advanced and useful words for the TOEFL test, and only a few remain on our list. 18. Illiterate. This word describes someone who cannot read or write. Unfortunately, there are still many illiterate adults in the world who struggle to access basic information and opportunities. Now, someone who is literate can read or write. Literate, illiterate. 19. Scarcity. This word refers to a lack of something, a shortage. For example, scarcity of food and water can lead to famine and drought in certain regions of the world. If there is a cupcake scarcity in your kitchen, there are very few cupcakes around, and you're not sure if any are coming anytime soon. The two most common synonyms are shortage and lack. The most common collocation is scarcity of resources. For example, in the TOEFL reading texts, you might see a sentence like this: scarcity of resources in the desert region forced nomadic tribes to migrate in search of water. Finally, number 20 is deteriorate. Deteriorate. This is another super popular word for the TOEFL test, and you see it practically everywhere. When something deteriorates, it means it gets worse over time. For example, if you don't take care of your things, like a bicycle or a toy, they can deteriorate and break down. So deteriorate basically means that things go from good to bad over time. There is a similar word starting with a D. Let's see if you can spot it. And the right answer is B. Decay. Deteriorate, decay, get worse are all synonymous. Today, we're going to play a little game to cover 15 advanced words in English that you need to know to ace the TOEFL, and to consider yourself an advanced language user. If you're currently preparing for the TOEFL and need someone to evaluate your writing and speaking, sign up for our TOEFL course and schedule a consultation with me. I'll tell you how well you'll do on the writing and speaking if you take the test tomorrow and what you should do differently to get a better score. The link is down below. First, let's review the rules of the game. They're very simple. You're going to see sentences with a word highlighted in each, and you have to guess the meaning of the highlighted word and choose one of the 4 options that matches the meaning. A quick note for future TOEFL takers. This is how the vocabulary question on the reading section looks. Remember, you don't have to understand everything, just the meaning of the word or phrase. Without further ado, let's get started. Number 1. The teacher chose the groups arbitrarily, without considering the students' preferences. The word arbitrarily is closest in meaning to A. randomly, B. cautiously, C. gleefully, and D. firmly. You have 5 seconds to think about your answer. And the correct answer is A. randomly. Arbitrarily means in a random manner. TOEFL creators just love it, so expect to see this word often on the test. Something said or done arbitrarily is done randomly or without much thought. Like when you arbitrarily eat whatever happens to be on the buffet table at your cousin's wedding. If you go to a movie and don't know what's playing, you might arbitrarily choose one based on the titles or the look of the posters. 2. The beauty of the sunset was so transcendent that it left everyone speechless. The word transcendent is closest in meaning to A. doleful, B. divine, C. meticulous, D. confined. You have 5 seconds to think it over. B is correct. Transcendent describes something so excellent that is beyond the range of human understanding. Transcendent shares the prefix trans, meaning across, with many familiar words such as transport, carry across, transcontinental, across a continent, and transparent, allowing light to shine across. So something transcendent goes across boring reality. It moves you. In this context, the closest word in meaning is divine. 3. Carrying all those bags up the stairs was a cumbersome task. The word cumbersome is closest in meaning to A. Doleful, B. Efficient, C. Inconvenient, and D. Transparent. C is correct. Cumbersome is something that's difficult to handle or use, especially because of size or weight, like a cumbersome piece of machinery. The word itself is kind of cumbersome, which means it's long and clumsy. Carrying all the bags up the stairs is cumbersome, so the right answer is inconvenient. By the way, we've seen the word doleful a couple of times in your answer options. For those who don't know it, doleful means sad or mournful. You can give someone a doleful look. You might be asking yourself now, why do I need to know all these words? Will I ever use them? Well, the answer is yes. If you're an advanced English speaker, you will use these words from time to time in your speech. You will also hear them in podcasts, videos, and movies all the time. The same applies to the TOEFL test. Knowing these words is a must, because the more extensive your vocabulary is, the easier it is for you to get your target score. An important thing to remember, though, is that limited vocabulary is not the only thing that can prevent you from getting the score you want. For example, I often see students who struggle with the reading section of the test, even though they can understand almost everything in the passage. This usually happens because 1, they don't know the strategies for each type of question, or 2, they don't know how to apply them effectively. That's why in our TOEFL course, we have a special module where we go through the reading section of the test together and see how the strategies we discuss should be used on the real test. 4. The incessant rain made it impossible to go outside without an umbrella. The word incessant is closest in meaning to A. Sporadic, B. Unceasing, C. Isolated, and D. Fleeting. And the right answer is B. Unceasing. Something incessant continues without interruption and is usually unpleasant. When you're on a cross-country flight, it's tough to tolerate the incessant crying of a baby. Now, fleeting, in contrast, is something that lasts for a very short time. Sporadic is something occurring occasionally. So A, C, and D are definitely incorrect. 5. His ambiguous response left us unsure of his intentions. The word ambiguous is closest in meaning to A. Clear, B. Vague, C. Precise, and D. Definitive. B is again correct. Ambiguous describes something that's open to more than one interpretation. An ambiguous sentence or situation drives us in 2 different directions at once. The stress is on the second syllable, big, which you can remember since something that's ambiguous can lead to big misunderstandings. When you buy a washing machine and want to assemble it, you may be frustrated by ambiguous instructions. They are not precise, not clear, and not definitive, which is why options A, C, and D are incorrect. For those of you who struggle with advanced vocabulary, we've prepared a free PDF with 100 academic words you need to know to ace the TOEFL test. These are the words you'll see all the time on the TOEFL exam, and knowing them will help you a lot. Feel free to download the PDF using the link below. 6. The garden was filled with abundant flowers of every color imaginable. The word abundant is closest in meaning to A. Scarce, B. Copious, C. Rare, D. Meticulous. Abundant means present in great quantity. So if the garden was filled with abundant flowers, it means there were a lot of them. So B is again correct. Remember to use abundant to describe something that exists in large amounts. For example, on Halloween, you can find candy in abundant supply. Scarce is the opposite of abundant. It's something found in short supply. 7. The adjacent room was also completely empty. The word adjacent is closest in meaning to A. Remote, B. Distant, C. Next door, D. Separate. C is correct. Adjacent means close to or near something. You may consider the people up and down your street to be neighbors, but your next door neighbor is the person who lives in the house or apartment adjacent to yours. If the two rooms are adjacent, they share a common wall. 8. He tried to coerce his friend into helping him with his homework. The word coerce is closest in meaning to A. Rumple, B. Persuade, C. Observe, and D. Pressure. The right answer is D. To coerce is to persuade, usually an unwilling person, to do something by using force or threats. It's not the same as persuade, though. Persuasion requires understanding. Coercion requires only power. 9. The metal gate had begun to corrode after years of exposure to the rain. The word corrode is closest in meaning to A. Erode, B. Coexist, C. Secrete, D. Garnish. A is correct. Corrode is a verb that usually describes destroying a metal by oxidation or by some other kind of chemical action. The word corrode can also be used figuratively. For example, bad influence can corrode the minds of young people. 10. Lack of funding proved to be a hindrance to the completion of the project. The word hindrance is closest in meaning to A. Prodigy, B. Obstacle, C. Facilitator, D. Catalyst. A hindrance is something in the way, an obstacle. So option B is the right answer. An untied shoelace is a hindrance to walking. You might hear the phrase more of a hindrance than help. It means that something intended to be a positive force has the opposite effect. 11. They found a way to circumvent the traffic by taking back roads. The word circumvent is closest in meaning to A. Avoid, B. Size up, C. Embrace, D. Take stock. To circumvent is to avoid or find a way around an obstacle. If you come to an obstruction in a road, you can seek to circumvent it. To circumvent can also mean to overcome, usually a problem or a difficulty, in a clear and surreptitious way. For example, the criminal found it quite easy to circumvent security. 12. The company's robust financial performance impressed investors. The word robust is closest in meaning to A. Fragile, B. Infamous, C. Feeble, D. Strong. Option D is correct. We can use robust to describe a person or thing that is healthy and strong, or strongly built. It also commonly describes food or drink. A robust wine has a rich, strong flavor. If you have a robust speaking voice, it means you have a voice that's deep and loud and strong. So, robust is definitely not feeble or fragile. 13. The two exchanged words before a police officer intervened. The word intervene is closest in meaning to A. Intercept, B. interfere, C. abstain, D. invalidate. B is again correct. The verb intervene means to get involved, to jump in the middle of something, to interfere. So before the police officer could interfere, the two people already exchanged words. 14. The singer received critical acclaim for her debut album. The word acclaim is closest in meaning to A. praise, B. criticism, C. denounce, D. condemn. The right answer is A. praise. Acclaim, as a noun, means enthusiastic and public praise. 15. The food at the restaurant was mediocre. The word mediocre is closest in meaning to A. exceptional, B. superior, C. barely adequate, D. concealed. C is correct. Mediocre is an adjective that means barely adequate or of average quality. It has a negative connotation. So, mediocre food means average food, nothing special. After studying tons of TOEFL practice tests, I've noticed that there are certain words that appear very often in reading passages and lectures, and they don't belong to any specific subject. These are the words that you will often find in academic articles and texts. And these are the words you'll usually need to answer questions on the TOEFL reading and listening sections. So in this video, I have collected 57 of the most common words you'll see on the TOEFL reading and listening sections that'll help you get the score you want. 1. Commodity. This word is super popular on the TOEFL, and I often see it in the reading passages. What's more important, it's often necessary to answer the questions. So, a commodity is any useful or valuable thing, especially something that you can buy or sell, like food, clothes, or electronics. So, coffee, grains, or precious metals are all examples of commodities. I've just seen this word mentioned a few times in 2 random reading passages, so it's really common for the TOEFL reading. 2. Exploit. If you use someone or something, usually selfishly or for profit, you'll exploit them. Factory owners can exploit their employees, making them work overtime. So to exploit is to use something or someone unfairly for your own benefit. On the TOEFL, however, you'll often see this word used in a slightly different sense. It usually means to make good use of something. For example, to exploit natural resources. The next word on our list is cultivate. The original meaning of this word is to prepare and use land for crops or gardening. So you'll often see it used in texts and lectures about agriculture. People can cultivate fields, gardens, or land. This word can also mean to develop or improve something, such as a skill or relationship. 4. Demise. Demise is the end of something. It can be the end of a person's life or anything else. We often use this word in medical or legal language, or when we want to sound formal. On the TOEFL, you'll often see this word used to describe the final stage of something. For example, the demise of a company or the demise of a relationship. 5. Prosperity. Another super popular word on the TOEFL test that I see all the time. Prosperity usually means being successful, especially financially. In the US, the decades after World War II were characterized by rising prosperity, with large numbers of people moving into the middle class. The adjective prosperous is also very typical for the TOEFL reading and listening sections. It means financially successful. Speaking of the word decade from the example I just gave, this is our next word. A decade is a period of 10 years. We have a decade, 10 years, a century, 100 years, and a millennium, 1,000 years. We actually have an entire course dedicated to TOEFL preparation, where we teach you all the words you need to know to score consistently high on each section of the test.
We have lists of words organized by topic, templates for effective speaking and writing responses, strategies for each question type, and more. I'll leave the link to the course below. Another important word to know is alteration. Alteration means a change or modification. The verb to alter means to make something different or to change something, such as altering a plan or altering a law. Remember 3 words with a similar meaning: to alter, to modify, to change. You'll often need them for the TOEFL reading. 8. Intermittently. I can't tell you how many times I see this word. It's a fancy way of saying from time to time, periodically. The adverb intermittently describes something that starts, then stops, and then starts up again. If you studied intermittently last night, it means that sometimes you studied, but sometimes you took breaks to do other things. A phrase with a similar meaning is off and on. We came across it just recently in one of our reading videos. This phrase means that something happens periodically, like working off and on, or visiting off and on. So remember, off and on or intermittently mean at intervals, not continuously. 10. Extensive. For some reason, this is one of the favorite words of the TOEFL creators. They use it in practically every reading passage or lecture I've ever worked with, and believe me, there have been many. The first and the most popular meaning is covering a large area. For example, extensive road repairs, extensive grounds, or extensive agriculture. So imagine something that covers a large area. That's extensive. Extensive can also mean having a great range. If your knowledge of the TOEFL test is extensive, you know a lot about it. If an event gets extensive coverage in the newspapers, it means many people are writing about it. Next is the word sophisticated. When something is sophisticated, it's complicated and intricate. The inner workings of a computer are sophisticated. It's difficult to understand them unless you're a computer expert. High school math is a lot more sophisticated than grammar school math. Driving a car is more sophisticated than riding a bike. On the TOEFL, you'll often find mentions of sophisticated computer models, sophisticated systems, or sophisticated tools used by ancient people. 12. Diverse. Various, very different. It's another common word that pops up in almost every passage. Diverse means that something has many different parts or elements, such as diverse culture or diverse wildlife. 13. Abruptly. Suddenly or without warning. 14. Result in. To cause something to happen. For example, high economic growth results in higher inflation. 15. Mild. Not severe or intense. We often use mild when talking about the weather or climate. Mild weather isn't too cold or too hot. This is the meaning that's most popular on the TOEFL test. However, this word can also be used in other areas. For example, mild criticism, not severe. A mild heart attack, not too serious. The next group of words have similar meanings. They are drastically, dramatically, and spectacularly. I see all 3 of them all the time, both in the reading and listening. On the TOEFL, they usually mean extremely or a lot. For example, their budget has been drastically reduced. Reduced a lot. The nature of conflict has changed dramatically. Has changed a lot. This attempt failed spectacularly. Significantly failed. 19. Tolerate. To accept or put up with something. You can tolerate noise or a person. Some people don't tolerate rude behavior. 20. Threat. An impending danger that has the potential to cause serious harm. TOEFL reading passages usually have many examples of threats, such as enemy threats, health threats, death threats, and so on. A popular collocation is imminent threat. It's a synonym for impending danger. One more very common word on both the reading and listening sections of the TOEFL is decline. To decline means to decrease or diminish in quantity or quality. We use it when something is getting smaller or worse. For example, the decline of a business or the decline of a population. 22. Coerce. To force someone to do something against their will. You can coerce a person to do something, or coerce a decision or a confession from a person. Again, just recently, I saw this word in one of the reading passages we were doing in a one-on-one session with my student. 23. Retreat. To go away from a place or person. To escape from fighting or danger. The TOEFL likes to use this word in a variety of contexts. You can find information about lizards retreating into the shade, or retreating shares of a company. We can even find it in the integrated speaking questions. For example, question 3 may be about a psychological term in which the speaker understands that their proposals were clearly unreasonable and is forced to retreat. So expect to see this word in many contexts. 24. Initially. In the beginning. At first. 25. Eventually. In the end. Especially after a long time or a lot of effort. A similar word that is often given as a paraphrase for the word eventually is ultimately. It means finally, after a series of things have happened. For example, the company ultimately succeeded, or the company ultimately failed. 27. Rival. A few days ago, one of my students made a mistake in the reading passage because she didn't know this word. So I decided to include it in today's list. A rival is a person or thing that competes with another. So it's a synonym for the word competitor. The question she had was the sentence simplification question about terrestrial plants that had the advantages of not having rivals. In the text, there was a line about the land of opportunity, free of competitors. Because she didn't know the word rivals, she couldn't find the right answer. This is a typical example of why you should know synonyms. Otherwise, you'll waste time when answering the questions, and you may make mistakes. 28. Data. Information. 29. Conventional. Usual, traditional, ordinary. It's a super popular word that I've also seen used in vocabulary questions. I also see it a lot in the TOEFL reading passages. You can find information about conventional explanation of something, conventional farming, conventional medicine, or weapons. 30. Supersede. To replace or surpass something. Some common collocations are supersede a law, supersede a record. Let's look at a typical sentence you might see on the TOEFL test. They still used stone tools similar to those superseded in Europe by metal tools thousands of years ago. Superseded, replaced. As you can see, the most effective way to remember all these new and difficult words is to think of simpler synonyms for them that you already know. That way, the next time you see the word supersede, you'll remember the word replace and will know what it means. Another super popular word I decided to include in this list is fossils. This word means remains or impressions of ancient plants or animals. Fossils look like this. You'll often find lectures and texts about fossils of dinosaurs. Again, I see this word all the time, and you just have to know it. 32. Flourish. To grow or develop successfully. Just as your tomatoes can flourish in the summer. Countries, companies, cultural life, the shipbuilding industry, computer technology, and lots of other things and spheres can flourish. People can also flourish, which means that they are successful. Remember we talked about the word prosperity earlier? Well, a synonym for to flourish is to prosper. Another synonym for this word we have on our list is to thrive. Your business or your relationships can thrive. So, remember these three words: to thrive, to prosper, to flourish. All of them mean to be successful. 34. Disruption. An interruption or disturbance. 35. Decay. Another word TOEFL creators love and use all the time. To decay means to rot or become weaker. For example, a building or a relationship can both decay. I recently had a text about how Venice's role as a storage and distribution center for spices, silk, and gold decayed, which means it became weaker and ultimately the city lost its monopoly. If you've taken at least a few TOEFL practice tests, you've probably also come across the idea that carbon decays in living things. Because carbon is radioactive, it decays over time, which means the older artifacts have less carbon than younger ones. This is why so many readings and lectures mention radiocarbon dating, which is a method that uses the decay of carbon to determine the age of organic materials. 36. Rigid, stiff, or fixed. Something that can be moved or bent. 37. Preserve, to keep something from decay or destruction. Simply put, to keep something safe. You can preserve a culture or preserve a historical site. By the way, a site is a place. 38. Depletion, the act of reducing or using something up. Some common collocations with this word are depletion of resources, soil depletion, or depletion of a population. 39. Estimate, to guess or calculate the cost, size, or value of something. As a verb, this word is pronounced estimate. It can also be used as a noun. In this case, we'd say an estimate. An estimate is a judgment or calculation of approximately how large or how great something is. If the mechanic's bill is much higher than the estimate they gave you, for example, you have a right to be angry. 40. Impact, the effect or influence of something on something else. Remember these three words: an impact, an influence, an effect. They are often used as paraphrases on TOEFL. The word impact can also mean the force or action of one object hitting another. For example, the moment two comments collide is called the moment of impact. 41. Inhibit, to prevent or stop something from happening. You can inhibit a process or inhibit a reaction. For example, this is the main factor inhibiting online access. Preventing online access. 42. Hibernation. This word is extremely common in academic lectures. Hibernation is a type of deep sleep that some animals, such as bears, for example, go into during the winter. So, simply put, hibernation is like taking a long nap. 43. Divert. The verb to divert means to change the direction or course of something. The police will divert traffic if there has been an accident, which is blocking the road. And it's a good idea to divert some of your income into a savings account, so you don't spend it all. On the TOEFL, you may find mentions of diverted traffic, information, diverted public attention, or investigation. 44. Tremendous, extremely large. For example, tremendous success or tremendous failure. A similar word is enormous. This word also means very big. An animal can be of an enormous size, or your parents can have an enormous influence on your life. 46. Emerge, to appear, to come out. Many different things can emerge. For example, details, patterns, trends, differences, or theories. A person can emerge from the crowd, or plants often emerge from the ground. 47. Expand. This word comes up all the time on the TOEFL. To expand means to increase in size or scope. You'll find texts about the universe, economy, business, or industries expanding. Markets or cities can also expand. 48. Proliferation, the act of increasing or spreading rapidly. 49. Escalate, to become greater or more serious. The situation started to escalate around noon. The credit crisis is escalating as expected. 50. Surplus, A surplus is something extra or left over. If your tree produces more apples than you can eat, you can make applesauce with the surplus of apples. You will often come across texts about surplus food, surplus money, surplus supplies. 51. Eliminate. This word is a must on the reading and listening sections of the TOEFL. To eliminate means to remove or get rid of something. This is what you do with the 4 answer options you get. First, you eliminate 2 options that are definitely wrong. You can also eliminate a problem, a possibility, or a risk. 52. Purchase. To buy something. For example, purchase a house or a car. 53. Obtain. To get something. You can obtain a degree, obtain information, permission, approval, or obtain a job. The next 3 words on our list have similar meanings. They are obligatory, mandatory, and compulsory. If something is obligatory, mandatory, or compulsory, you must do it because of a rule or a law. For example, this is mandatory to help prevent fraud. Registration was obligatory, but voting was optional. The study skills courses were almost always compulsory. You'll see these words all the time, so be sure to write them down if you don't know them. 57. Predominant. More noticeable or important, or greater number than others. The predominant colors, however, were black and yellow. Look at these words. Anticlimactic, reacquaint, antecedent, circumvent, descend, extraterrestrial, permeate. Do you know what they mean? If not, can you guess their meaning? While you don't need to know all of them to get a 30 out of 30 on test day, you often need to be able to guess the meaning of difficult words you encounter in the reading, listening, writing, and even speaking sections of the test. Sometimes you can do this from context. However, there may be situations where the context won't be of much help. In that case, there is another way to figure out the meaning of the word, which we'll talk about in today's video. I decided to share a strategy with you that will help you find out what many unfamiliar words mean, and also allow you to learn 100 essential words for the TOEFL test. So, what's the strategy then? We can use our knowledge of prefixes, suffixes, and roots. For those of you who don't know, the root is the main part of a word that gives us its basic meaning. For example, in the word unhappy, the root is happy. Now, a prefix is a small part added to the beginning of a root word to change its meaning. For example, the prefix un in unhappy means not. So unhappy means not happy. Finally, a suffix is a small part added to the end of a root word to change its form or meaning. In this video, we'll only focus on important prefixes, but if you find this lesson helpful, let me know in the comments and I'll make 2 more videos talking about roots and suffixes. Quick note for those of you who may be wondering, why do I need to learn prefixes? How will this information help me ace the TOEFL test? Learning prefixes is a great way to learn tons of novel words and to guess the meanings of the unfamiliar ones, because many prefixes have consistent meanings. For example, if you know that pre means before, you can guess that preview means to view something before it's shown, while pre-med is the name for undergraduate courses that prepare students to enter medical school after graduation, which means they're taken before medical school. So, in this video, we'll explore some common prefixes and the words they create. Let's get started. The first prefix is anti. As you might have guessed, this prefix means against. Let's look at some common words with it. Antisocial, against being social, not wanting to be with others. Antifreeze, against freezing. An antifreeze is a liquid that prevents engines from freezing. Antivirus, against viruses. It's the software that removes computer viruses. Antibody, against some foreign substances. An antibody is a protein that fights harmful substances in the body. Antigen, a substance that causes the immune system to react. Antithesis, the complete opposite of something. The word is used to describe a person or a thing that is the direct opposite of something or someone else. Anticlimactic. When something seems like it's going to be exciting, but then it lets you down, it's anticlimactic. Let's look at a few examples. After all the build-up and suspense, the movie's ending was anticlimactic, leaving the audience disappointed. Her calm and composed demeanor was the antithesis of his angry and impulsive behavior. When a foreign antigen enters the body, the immune system responds by producing antibodies to fight it. As you can see, one prefix gives us 7 advanced words that are often seen in academic contexts. Prefix number 2, contra. Just as our first prefix, contra means against. Contradict, to say the opposite. Contravene, to act contrary to a rule or law. For example, the company knew its actions contravened international law. Contraband, goods that are prohibited by law. They're against the law. One important thing to remember, just knowing a lot of words won't help you ace the TOEFL test. In my one-on-one sessions, I now have a large number of people preparing for the TOEFL reading, and I'll tell you that most of them have a fairly extensive vocabulary. However, their main problem is that they can't apply the strategies for different question types correctly and work effectively under pressure. So what we do is work on automating their skills and teaching them how to adapt each strategy to find the right answer as quickly as possible. If you're also struggling with the reading section of the TOEFL test, click on the link below and sign up for the TOEFL prep course we have created to help students around the world prepare for the TOEFL test. We'll analyze tons of reading passages together, evaluate your speaking and writing, and tell you what you need to do differently to get a higher score. The next prefix is extra, beyond. Extracurricular, beyond the regular curriculum. She participates in many extracurricular activities, such as the debate club and the soccer team. Extraterrestrial, beyond the Earth. Scientists are searching for extraterrestrial life. Extraordinary, beyond the ordinary. Extravagant, beyond reasonable limits. Extrasensory, beyond the normal range of senses. Some people claim to have extrasensory perception. Prefix number 4 is bene. It comes from Latin and means well or good. This prefix is found in many English words that convey positive meanings related to goodness or well-being. For example, we all know the word benefit, which means something that is good or helpful. Another example is benevolent, showing kindness and goodwill. Benefactor, a person who gives financial or other support. A good person. Beneficiary, a person who benefits from something. For example, the main beneficiaries of these economic reforms. Benediction, a short blessing. Again, a good thing. Beneficial, producing good results. It's a very useful word for the writing section of the test. If you want to say that something is good and produces good results, you can say it's beneficial. For example, this policy has had a beneficial effect on the economy. The next prefix is anti. Don't confuse it with anti. Like bene, the prefix anti comes from Latin, where it means before. It's used in many English words to indicate something that comes before in time or position. Let's look at a few examples. Antecedent, something that comes before another thing. On the TOEFL, you can often find mentions of historical events that were the antecedents of the current situation, which means they came before the current situation. Antechamber, a small room leading to a main one, often used as a waiting area. So it's before the main room. Guests waited in the antechamber before entering the main hall. Number 6, miss. This prefix means wrongly or badly. We all know that to mistake means to make an error. Now, a few other words with this prefix that are common on the TOEFL test are misunderstand, to fail to understand something correctly, get things wrong. Misinterpret, to interpret incorrectly. Misfit, a person who does not fit in. For example, he felt like a misfit in the new school because he had different interests from his classmates. Misfortune, bad luck. Misbehave, to behave badly. I just saw this word in one of the speaking tasks. I think it was in question 3. Misguide, to guide wrongly. Prefix number 7 is re. It means to do again. This is a very popular prefix, and I see a lot of words with this prefix in all sections of the test. Let's look at some of them. Reabsorb, to absorb again. Reacquaint, to become familiar with again. Readmit, to admit again. Reappear, to appear again. Rearrange, to arrange again. Recopy, to recopy again. Reconsider, to consider again. A few more verbs. Rebuild, to build again. Renew, to make something new again. Reorganize, to arrange something in a new way. Reproduce, to make a copy of something or to produce offspring. Rehabilitate, to restore to a former state or to good health. Reevaluate, to assess or consider something again. Now, the words we just looked at are all verbs. You can also see many nouns with the same prefix. For example, resurgence. It's a very popular word on the TOEFL test that means a return or revival of something that has declined or disappeared, like comeback. A few other typical words with this prefix are rebirth, reconstruction, rediscovery, reevaluation, regeneration. The process of renewal, restoration, or growth when you generate something again. Reinforcement, the act of strengthening or supporting something. Reformation, the process of making changes to improve something. Restoration, the act of returning something to its original condition. Renewal, the process of making something new, fresh, or strong again. Let's look at a few typical TOEFL sentences using some of the words we've just covered. The resurgence of interest in classical music has led to a renewed appreciation of orchestral performances. The teacher used positive reinforcement to encourage good behavior among her students. After a period of decline, the city is experiencing a renewal of economic activity and cultural events. The plant can reabsorb nutrients from its old leaves before they fall off. All these words appear in every section of the test. So if you don't know them, add them to your list. Prefix number 8 is ex. It means out. Exclude, to keep out. Expel, to force someone to leave a place, usually a school or college. The student was expelled for cheating on the exam. Next, we have 3 prefixes: come, con, cal. They all come from the Latin prefix cum, which means together or with. These prefixes usually form words that convey the idea of coming together or being associated with something. Let's look at some examples. Compliant, meaning rules or standards. Communal, shared by all members of a community. Something for common use, like shared together. Combine, to bring together. Collaborate, to work with someone. Collect, together. Collate, to collect and arrange in order. This verb means to collect and arrange information, text, or data in a particular order, often for the purpose of comparison or organization. It can also refer to arranging the pages of a document in the correct order. For example, the researcher had to collate data from different sources to complete the study. Before you bind the documents, make sure you collate the pages properly. Connect, to join or link together. Convene, to come together for a meeting or a gathering. The board of directors is convening next week to discuss the company's strategic plan for the upcoming year. Prefix number 10 is hyper, excessively. Hypertension, abnormally high blood pressure. Blood pressure that's too high. He takes medicine to control his hypertension. Hyperactive, excessively active. Hyperventilate, to breathe too fast. We hyperventilate because we are afraid. Hypersensitive, extremely sensitive. Hyperinflation, extremely rapid inflation. The country is facing hyperinflation, making basic goods unaffordable. Hypermodern, extremely modern. The 11th prefix is the one you'll see a lot on the TOEFL test. It's inter. The prefix inter means between. Just look at how many words you can make with this prefix. Intercultural, between cultures. The program promotes intercultural understanding and exchange. Interact, talking, dancing, playing a game. All these activities allow you to interact with other people. It's about the communication that happens between people. Students are encouraged to interact with each other throughout the project. Intercept, to stop something from reaching its final destination, to get between that object and the final destination. If you're planning a surprise party for your friend and she arrives half an hour early, you might run to intercept her while everyone rushes to hide. A typical example: the spy managed to intercept the secret message. Interstellar, between stars. The movie is about an interstellar journey to find a new home for humanity. Remember the movie Interstellar? Let me know in the comments below if you've seen it, because it's definitely one of my favorites. If you haven't, you should definitely check it out. It will teach you a lot of useful vocabulary for the TOEFL test. Intervene, to come between. This word comes from the Latin intervenire, meaning to come between. So to intervene is to get involved, to jump in the middle of something, to interfere. By the way, to interfere is another great word with the same prefix. Prefix D means from or down. Descend, to move or fall downward. There is also a noun, descent, which means the process of going down. As in a popular quote from Virgil, the descent into hell is easy. Deduct, to subtract or take away an amount or part from a total. The tax is deducted from your payments. Degrade, to lower in character or quality, to go down in quality. The quality of cognitive processing is severely degraded. It has gone down in quality. Dehydrate, to remove all water from, or to dry up. To make a raisin, you dehydrate a grape. When you exercise a lot, it's good to drink water so that your body doesn't get dehydrated. Deactivate, to make inactive. Decelerate, to slow down. Decelerate is the opposite of accelerate, which means to go faster. It often describes slowing a vehicle, but it can relate to nearly anything, like a friendship that begins with hanging out nearly every day, but decelerates when you move to a new town or get busy with school or sports. It doesn't mean the friendship is ending or over, just that the pace is now a little slower. One more prefix you need to know is post, after. Post-operative, happening after surgery. The patient needed post-operative care. Postgraduate, a student who is continuing their studies after receiving a bachelor's degree. She's a postgraduate student studying for her master's degree. Post-war, after a war. Now the prefix pre means before. Precedence, the state of being earlier in time. Notice the verb precede in the noun precedence, and you'll be able to remember that precedence is the act of preceding or coming before, either in time or in rank. Safety should take precedence over speed. Predecessor. A predecessor is something that came before the current version. The person you replace at work is your predecessor, just as Pac-Man is the predecessor of modern video games. Predecessors include our ancestors, earlier car models, and all sorts of other predecessors. For example, the new CEO is very different from his predecessor. Predate, to happen earlier than something else. The document appears to predate the invention of the printing press. Preface, an introduction to a book. The preface gives an overview of what the book is about. Prehistoric, before recorded history. A typical sentence on the TOEFL reading section would be something like this. They discovered prehistoric fossils during the excavation. Again, the prefix pre means before, and the historic refers to something from a past culture. Put the two together and you get prehistoric, a word that describes something that comes from a time before history was recorded. Premeditate, to plan in advance. The crime was premeditated, not a spontaneous act. Next is the prefix trans. As you may have guessed, trans means across. This is another very popular prefix on the TOEFL test. We have a lot of words with this prefix. Transport, to carry across. Transatlantic, across the Atlantic Ocean. Transcend, to rise above or go beyond the limits of. Translate, to express in another language. Transmit, to send from one place or person to another. Transverse, lying or being across. When something is transverse, it goes sideways or at an angle. You might take a transverse path across the park. It's a shortcut if you're in a hurry because you don't have to walk the entire length. Finally, the last prefix for today is pro, which means forward or before. Propose, to put forward for consideration. Proponent, a supporter of a cause. She's a strong proponent of renewable energy. This word is the opposite of opponent. Propel, to drive or push forward. The boat is propelled by a strong engine. Promote, to help to flourish, to move forward. The campaign aims to promote healthy eating habits. Proactive, creating or controlling a situation rather than just reaching to it. When you are proactive, you make things happen instead of waiting for them to happen to you. Pro in this context means before, which means when you are proactive, you're ready before something happens. Proliferate, to grow rapidly. The use of mobile phones has proliferated in recent years.
Let's explore 22 essential astronomy terms that might come up on your TOEFL exam. We'll start with simpler terms and then move on to more complex ones. Ready to expand your cosmic vocabulary? Let's launch into it. The first word is celestial. The term describes anything related to the sky or outer space. For example, celestial bodies include stars, planets, and moons. A typical sentence on TOEFL reading might be, the study of celestial phenomena, such as eclipses and comets, can reveal much about the universe. Here, celestial is used to describe objects related to outer space. So remember, anything celestial has to do with space. The next word is orbital. It refers to the path that a celestial body, again a star, a planet, or a moon, takes around another object. For instance, Earth's orbital path around the Sun is elliptical. The orbital period of a planet refers to the time it takes to complete one full orbit around the Sun. Moving on to comets. A comet is a small celestial body made of ice and dust that orbits the Sun. When it comes close to the Sun, it forms a glowing tail. So, a celestial body made of ice with a glowing tail is a comet. Let's look at a sample sentence. Comets, such as Halley's Comet, have highly elliptical orbits that bring them close to the Sun at regular intervals. Now, let's talk about black holes. A black hole is a region in space where gravity is so intense that nothing Not even light can escape. You've probably seen this term used in many movies about space, such as Interstellar. Let me know in the comments below if you've seen this movie. If not, make sure you do. It's a great film that will teach you many terms related to space and astronomy. An example using this word is: the discovery of a supermassive black hole at the center of galaxies has provided insights into the formation of galaxies. The next word is galaxy. A galaxy is a massive system of stars, star clusters, planets, and dust bound together by gravity. Our galaxy is called the Milky Way. The Milky Way contains hundreds of billions of stars and is just one of many galaxies in the universe. By the way, you just heard me say another interesting word: star clusters. What is a star cluster? This is our next term. A cluster is a group of similar things or people that are very close together. So a star cluster is a group of stars that are gravitationally bound together. A typical star cluster would look like this. Supernova. A supernova is a massive explosion that occurs when a star exhausts its fuel and collapses. For those who don't know, to collapse means to fall down or subside. When a star runs out of fuel, it can no longer support itself against the gravitational pull. This causes the core to contract or collapse, leading to the supernova explosion as the outer layers are violently ejected into space. For example, the light from a supernova can temporarily outshine an entire galaxy, providing critical data for astronomers. Now, let's look at the word asteroid. An asteroid is a small rocky body that orbits the sun. Asteroids can vary in size from a few meters to hundreds of kilometers in diameter. On the TOEFL listening, you might be asked, what role do asteroids play in our understanding of the early solar system? Remember in one of our previous videos, I mentioned how one of my students improved his reading scores by learning technical vocabulary. This is the kind of vocabulary you should learn. Choose the most common topics that appear on the TOEFL test. Then, review their basic terms. You don't need to memorize tons of words. 15 to 20 key terms are usually enough. To get a better understanding of these words, read a few articles or watch videos in Crash Course or other educational channels. It's more effective than just learning translations in your native language. This approach will definitely help you on your TOEFL test. For biology, I highly recommend checking out the Amoeba Sisters channel. Another important point is understanding the types of questions for each section and knowing how to approach them effectively. Often, students can understand most of the text in the reading section, but still end up with a score of 22 to 23. Some may know almost every word in the listening section, but get fluctuating scores ranging from 21 to 28. To score consistently high, you need to know exactly what to do in each question type and how to get to the right answers as quickly as possible. In our TOEFL prep course, we'll go over reading passages together, review strategies for the listening section, share high-scoring templates for writing and speaking, and more. You can find the link to the course below. If you want feedback on your writing and speaking, consider the Pro package, but be sure to schedule the consultation at least a week before the test, so you have time to apply the corrections I will suggest. Word number 9 is nebula. A nebula is a large cloud of gas and dust in space where new stars often form. Let's look at sample sentences that use this word. The Crab Nebula, a remnant of a supernova explosion observed in 1054, is one of the most studied objects in the night sky. 2 of our new words in one sentence: nebula and supernova. The bright colors of the nebula are caused by different gases emitting light at different wavelengths. A nebula and a supernova are the words that people often confuse. To avoid this, remember that a nebula is a place where stars are born, and a supernova is a powerful explosion that marks the end of a star's life. The next 3 words are also often confused by students. They are meteoroid, meteor, and meteorite. We've already discussed asteroids, which are rocky bodies that orbit the sun. A meteoroid is a smaller fragment that breaks off from an asteroid and travels through space. So it's generally smaller than an asteroid. When a meteoroid enters Earth's atmosphere, it becomes a meteor. As it travels through the atmosphere, it produces a bright streak of light and is often called a shooting star or falling star. Finally, if a meteor survives its passage through the atmosphere and lands on Earth's surface, it's called a meteorite. So, a meteorite is essentially a piece of a meteoroid that has made it through the atmosphere and landed on the ground. Let's summarize the sequence. An asteroid can break up into smaller pieces called meteoroids, which then become meteors as they enter the atmosphere. And if they reach Earth's surface, they're called meteorites. A few sample sentences. The bright meteor that appeared in the night sky was a spectacular sight for stargazers. Meteor showers are often named after the constellation from which they appear to radiate. In the last sentence, we have two more terms that are important for the TOEFL test. They are meteor showers and constellation. A meteor shower happens when many meteors enter Earth's atmosphere and create bright streaks of light in the sky. It looks like a shower of shooting stars. Many people around the world watch meteor showers, and they are popular events for stargazers and astronomy enthusiasts. Another word on our list is constellation. A constellation is something else that people like to look at in the night sky. It's a group of stars that form a recognizable pattern. There are a lot of constellations in the sky. Let me know your favorite constellation in the comments below. Some sample sentences. The ancient Greeks named many constellations after mythological figures and stories important to their culture. Navigators used constellations to find their way across the oceans before modern instruments were invented. Number 15 is light year. A light year is the distance that light travels in 1 year. For example, the Andromeda galaxy is about 2.5 million light years from Earth. After a TOEFL lecture on astronomy, you might be asked, how is the concept of a light year used to measure distances in space? The next two terms are my favorites. They are red giant and white dwarf. A red giant is a huge star that has expanded and cooled down after using up the hydrogen fuel in its core. The core is the center of a star. It appears red and is much larger than it was in the earlier stages. Now, a white dwarf is a small, very dense star that is left after a star like the Sun has used up all its fuel and shed its outer layers. It's not very bright and it cools gradually over time. So let's recap. A red giant is a large, luminous star in the late stages of its evolution. A white dwarf is a star that was once a big star, but now is a tiny, dense remnant. Lunar eclipse. A lunar eclipse happens when Earth comes between the Sun and the Moon, blocking the Sun's light from reaching the Moon. As a result, Earth casts a shadow on the Moon. During a total lunar eclipse, the Moon can turn a reddish color, which is sometimes called a blood moon. There is also a solar eclipse, which happens when the Moon moves between Earth and the Sun, blocking the Sun's light. It can make it look like the Sun is partially or completely covered. So, lunar refers to the Moon, while solar refers to the Sun. You'll often find these words on the reading and listening sections of the TOEFL. For example, lunar surface, lunar phases, lunar craters, solar system, solar flares, solar wind. Another word on our list is luminosity. Luminosity in astronomy refers to how bright a star or other celestial object is. It helps astronomers understand how much energy a star produces and can also give clues about its size and stage in its life cycle. For example, a star with high luminosity is much brighter and emits more energy than a star with low luminosity. 21. Stellar. This term refers to stars. For instance, stellar evolution refers to the life cycle of stars. A stellar wind is a flow of charged particles that are emitted from the outer layers of a star. There is also the adjective interstellar, which means between stars or occurring in the space between stars. It describes anything related to the regions of space that lie between individual stars in a galaxy. For example, interstellar dust and gas contribute to the formation of new stars and planetary systems. The spacecraft is designed to travel through interstellar space once it leaves our solar system. These are 22 astronomy terms to help you succeed on the TOEFL exam. Today it's time to delve into the field of biology and discuss 40 words related to the subject that often appear on the TOEFL test. Let me know how many words you know in the comments below, and write winner if you know them all. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel to get more TOEFL tips and tricks, and click the bell icon to get notified when the next video comes out. Let's get started. Let's begin with enzymes. Enzymes are proteins that speed up chemical reactions in your body. They are needed whenever your body or cells are doing a chemical reaction. For example, enzymes are essential for digesting food. They break down nutrients into smaller molecules that your body can absorb. They help speed up all these reactions, and without enzymes, many vital processes would be too slow to keep people healthy. 2. Symbiosis. Symbiosis is a close relationship between two different species, where they live together and can help each other. For example, bees and flowers. Bees collect nectar from flowers to make honey, which provides them with food. In the process, bees help pollinate flowers, which allows flowers to reproduce. This is symbiosis because both bees and flowers benefit from the interaction. 3. Receptor. A structure on a cell that receives signals. This word is often used in the TOEFL reading passages. For example, I've recently worked with the passage about infrared receptors in snakes. Let's look at the first sentence of this passage. It's thought that the facial pits, or pit organs, on the head of some snakes are specialized infrared heat receptors. So, an infrared receptor is a specialized sensory organ that detects heat emitted by warm-blooded animals. They are located in the pit organs of the head of the snake and allow the snake to find its prey, even in total darkness, which is very helpful when hunting. 4. Mitosis. This word also appears frequently in biology texts and lectures. It's a process of cell division in which the parent cell makes two new daughter cells, each with the same number of chromosomes as the parent. To do this, it goes through several different phases to divide and then rebuild the chromosomes. Simply put, mitosis is a way cells divide. 5. Genome. The complete set of DNA, genetic material of an organism. For example, a human genome is all the DNA found in a human cell. It has about 20,000 to 25,000 genes spread across 23 pairs of chromosomes. These genes contain the instructions that are necessary to build and maintain a human being. 6. Stimulus. Anything that causes a response in an organism. For example, light is a stimulus that makes a plant grow toward it. The plural of stimulus is stimuli. In the text about snakes that I've just mentioned, there was a part about a variety of stimuli, such as sound, vibration, or light of moderate intensity. So remember, stimulus, stimuli. If you feel that many of the words we've just covered are unfamiliar to you, it means that your technical vocabulary needs to be expanded. Study subjects such as biology, geology, history, zoology, geography, psychology, astronomy, art, and anthropology. Learn the most basic terms in each field, and then do lots of reading to not only memorize these words, but also to learn about the subject. You can also use the vocabulary lists for different topics that we have created in our TOEFL prep course. They contain the most important words you'll see on the TOEFL test. And remember that a large vocabulary is only half of your TOEFL score. The other half is knowing the right strategies, avoiding panic, and being able to adapt your strategies quickly depending on the question. You can find all of this in our TOEFL prep course. So if your exam is coming up and you want feedback on the writing and speaking sections, feel free to check it out. I'll leave the link in the description below. Let's move on. 7. Estrogen. A hormone that controls female reproductive functions and affects other processes in the body. The next word in our list is mutation. A mutation is a change in DNA that can create new traits or cause health problems. There is also the verb to mutate, Cells can mutate at different times and due to different factors. 9. Photosynthesis. This is one of the most common biology words on the TOEFL test. As you probably all know, photosynthesis is the process plants use to convert sunlight into energy. Plants use photosynthesis to make their own food from sunlight, water, and carbon dioxide. 10. Cellular respiration. The process by which cells make energy from food. The adjective cellular means related to the cells of a plant or animal. As we've just discussed, cellular respiration is how cells get energy from food. So, what happens during this process? Cells take in nutrients from the food you eat, such as sugars. Inside the cell, these nutrients and oxygen are combined in a process that creates energy. This energy is then used by the cell to perform its functions, like moving, growing, or dividing. The process also produces waste products, like carbon dioxide and water, that the cell needs to get rid of. So, cellular respiration is like a mini power plant inside your cells that turns food and oxygen into the energy your body needs to work. 11. Homeostasis. Homeostasis is how your body maintains a stable internal environment, like keeping your body temperature just right. For example, if you get too hot, your body sweats to cool down. If you are too cold, your body shivers to produce heat. Both of these actions help keep your body temperature stable. 12. Chloroplast. A chloroplast is the part of a plant cell where photosynthesis takes place, converting sunlight into food. The next two words are genotype and phenotype. The difference between genotype and phenotype is what is encoded in your genes versus what you can actually see or experience. The genotype is the specific set of genes that an organism has. For example, if a person has the genetic code for blue eyes, that code is their genotype. It's the genetic information they inherit from their parents. Now, the phenotype is the observable traits or characteristics of an organism that results from the interaction between the genotype and the environment. The actual blue eye color that you see in a person is their phenotype. It's how the genotype manifests itself in the physical appearance or behavior of the organism. In short, genotype is about the genetic code, like genes for eye color. Phenotype is about the physical expression of that code. For example, having blue eyes. The next two words are eukaryotes and prokaryotes. Eukaryotes and prokaryotes are two basic types of cells that differ mainly in their internal structures. Eukaryotes are cells with a nucleus and other specialized parts, like those in plants and animals. Prokaryotes are simpler cells without a nucleus, such as bacteria. Eukaryotes are more complex and larger, while prokaryotes are smaller and less complex. 17. Speciation. Speciation is the process by which new species form, often when populations separate and evolve differently. On the TOEFL, you'll often see this word in reading passages and hear it in lectures. For example, on the Galapagos Islands, different bird species evolved from a common ancestor. Each species adapted to different food sources and environments, resulting in variations in beak size and shape. 18. Amino acids. Amino acids are the basic building blocks of proteins, which are important for cell structure and function. Another word is lipids. These are fats and oils that store energy and are important components of cell membranes. 20. Neurons. Neurons are nerve cells that carry messages throughout the body, helping with thoughts, feelings, and movement. For example, neurons transmit electrical signals between the brain, spinal cord, and other parts of the body, allowing us to think, feel, and control movement. Another word we'll cover today is cortisol. You've probably heard this word before. Cortisol is a hormone released during stress that helps your body cope with challenging situations. Some typical sentences using this word are: when you're stressed, your body produces more cortisol to help you cope. Over time, high levels of cortisol can lead to health problems, such as high blood pressure and weakened immune function. 22. Anaerobic. Processes that occur without oxygen. For example, anaerobic respiration. Anaerobic means without oxygen. Anaerobic bacteria, unlike humans, don't need oxygen to survive. 23. Secrete. To secrete means to produce and release a liquid. I've heard this word used a few times on TOEFL speaking. There was a lecture in question 4 that mentioned that some plants secrete a sticky substance. So remember, when a cell or gland releases a substance, such as sweat or saliva, to perform a specific function, we can use the verb to secrete. 24. RNA, a molecule involved in protein synthesis and gene expression. 25. DNA, the molecule that carries genetic information. 26. Moisture, a liquid such as water in the form of very small droplets, either in the air, in a substance, or on the surface. For example, a rich soil retains moisture. 27. Foliage, the leaves of a plant. 28. Hibernation, a period of rest in some animals during the winter to conserve energy when food is scarce. This word is very common in TOEFL lectures. One of the lectures I like to analyze with my students is about hibernation. We can also use the verb to hibernate, which means to go into a deep sleep during the winter. Animals like bears, hedgehogs, and chipmunks hibernate in winter. Another word to discuss is the verb to forage. It means to look for food in the wild. A forager is someone who searches for food. Humans can also be foragers. Historically, early human societies were hunter-gatherers who foraged for nuts, seeds, and other edible plants, as well as hunted animals. Even today, some people practice foraging as a hobby. Foragers may gather wild mushrooms, berries, herbs, and other natural foods. Now, foraging refers to the act of searching for and collecting wild food resources. The next word is scavenger. It's an animal that eats dead plants or animals, helping to clean up the environment. Some examples of scavengers are vultures and ravens. As unpleasant as scavenging may seem, it's important to remember that scavengers play a crucial role in ecosystems by helping to recycle nutrients and reduce the spread of disease. 31. Internal. Internal means happening or existing inside. For example, internal mechanisms or processes occur within an organism. Digestion is an internal process. Now, external is existing or happening outside a person, a company, a place, or a country. Factors or stimuli that come from outside an organism are called external. 33. Species. A species is a distinct group of animals or plants that share common characteristics and can interbreed. Your poodle and your bulldog are the same species, but your hamster and your goldfish are not. The next two words are food web and food chain. A food web is a network of who eats whom in an ecosystem, showing how energy moves through living things. Now, a food chain is a sequence of organisms where each one is eaten by the next, starting with plants. Food chains and food webs often appear in TOEFL lectures and integrated speaking tasks. The next word is ecosystem. I've already used it a few times in this video. It's a community of living things, such as plants and animals, that interacts with each other and their environment, such as air, water, and soil. It's like a complex web where everything depends on everything else. 37. Heterotroph. A heterotroph is an animal that can't make its own food supply, so it must eat other things, such as plants or other animals, to survive. Humans are heterotrophs because we eat plants or meat to stay alive. There are 3 types of heterotrophs: herbivores, carnivores, and omnivores. Herbivores eat grass, carnivores eat other animals, and omnivores eat both. 38. Autotroph. Plants that produce their own food are called autotrophs. Plants, algae, and some bacteria are autotrophs and form the basis of food chain. 39. Crustacean. A crustacean is a member of class of arthropods that live in water. These aquatic animals have exoskeletons. Some of your favorite seafood comes from crustaceans: crabs, lobsters, and shrimp. If you don't know the words arthropods or aquatic, you should check out the previous episode where we talked about zoology vocabulary. Finally, the last word is biodiversity. Biodiversity is a shortened form of 2 words: Biological diversity. Biological refers to the study of life forms. Diversity means many and different. When you have many animals or plants living in one place, you have biodiversity. For example, scientists believe that the deep ocean may be as rich in biodiversity as the planet's tropical rainforests. These are 40 biology words you'll see a lot on the TOEFL test. Knowing them will help you understand passages and lectures. So let's dive right into zoology. Zoology is a branch of biology that focuses on the study of animals. We'll look at 109 words from this field that you need to know for the TOEFL test. To help you memorize the zoology vocabulary better, we've created a small PDF with all the words I cover in this lesson. You can pause the video now and download it by clicking on the link down below. That way, you won't have to write down all the words, and you'll have extra help as you watch the rest of the episode. In today's list, I've included many animals that often appear on the TOEFL test. We won't focus much on them because knowing these words isn't a must. However, they will definitely make taking the test a lot easier. For example, in the speaking section, you may be asked to summarize a lecture about bobcats. If you have no idea what a bobcat is, it may be more difficult for you to understand the lecture and answer the question. Now, if you know that a bobcat is an animal in the cat family that looks like this, you'll understand the lecture better. So for animals, we're going to have little picture quizzes. You'll see pictures of animals changing one by one, and your task will be to guess what these animals are. Let's dive right in. Let's begin with the classes of animals. When classifying animals, scientists divide them into two groups: invertebrates, which is our first word, and vertebrates, the second word on our list. Invertebrates are animals without a backbone. They can live on land, like insects, spiders, and worms, or in water. Some examples of invertebrates are, and now it's time for your first vocabulary test. Look at the pictures and name the animals you see. I'll give you the correct word in a few seconds. Sea anemones. Sea urchins. Crayfish. Termites. Snails. All of these animals are invertebrates. By the way, don't forget to keep track of how many words you know, and then share your results at the end of the video. For example, 75 out of 109, or 100 out of 109. The next word is arthropods. An arthropod is an invertebrate animal with no internal spine. A spine is a backbone that vertebrates have, a body made of segments joined together, and a hard covering, like shell. Arthropods include insects and similar creatures. Spiders are a common example of arthropods. Other typical examples of arthropods are dragonflies, ants, beetles, ladybugs, flies, shrimp, and grasshoppers. Back to vertebrates. These are animals with a backbone. They include mammals. Mammals are warm-blooded animals that have fur or hair, give birth to live offspring, with a few exceptions, and produce milk to feed their young. Time for a quick vocabulary quiz. A hamster, a whale, a bat, a giraffe, and even a human are all mammals. Polar bears, orcas, sloths are those slow-moving mammals known for their relaxed, laid-back lifestyle. Meerkats. Now, all mammals are vertebrates, but not all vertebrates are mammals. Birds are also vertebrates. How would you call this bird? It's an eagle. And this one? It's a hawk. Owl. Falcon. Ostrich. Raven. Vertebrates also include reptiles, which are cold-blooded animals with scaly skin. Some examples are snakes, lizards, reptiles that have scales for skin, a long body, a pointed tail, and usually 4 legs. Turtles, tortoises, crocodiles, and alligators. Here's an interesting question for you. What's the difference between a turtle and a tortoise? Turtles live mostly in water, such as ponds, rivers, and oceans, but some species can also live on land. Tortoises, on the other hand, are primarily land dwellers, often found in dry or grassy areas. Turtles spend most of their time in water and come ashore mainly to lay eggs. Now, tortoises spend their entire lives on land, in burrows or under rocks to stay cool. One important note, as I always say, knowing a lot of words is a great help on your TOEFL test, but it's not enough to get a 100 or higher. If you really want to score high, you should know the question strategies and, most importantly, use them effectively. Recently, I've been busy with consultations after our TOEFL prep course and my one-on-one sessions, and since I'm always analyzing the mistakes my students make, I've once again come to the conclusion that most students only need to change a few minor things to get the score they really need. Instead, they spend time, money, and effort retaking the test over and over again, trying to get their target score. For example, most students usually come to our sessions with a score of 22 to 23 on the speaking test. Not because they have a poor level of English, but because they're so worried about following all the rules that when they start to speak, they stutter, hesitate, and produce the worst possible answers. The same goes for reading. Most of the students I see in my sessions are well aware of the strategies for each question. Yet, they don't use those strategies well enough to find the right answers quickly. So we have to go through each question type together, and then they start getting high scores. So, if you're struggling with any section of the test, you can take our TOEFL course, where we'll teach you all the skills you need to finally ace the TOEFL test. The link is below. As always, if you choose the Pro package with a post-course consultation, be sure to schedule it at least a week before the test. That way, you'll have time to implement all the corrections I've made. Amphibians are another class of vertebrates. These are animals that can live in water and on land. A typical amphibian is a cold-blooded vertebrate that is born in water and breathes with gills. This is another word from our list. Gills look like this. As amphibians grow, their lungs develop so that they can also live on land. Some examples of amphibians are frogs and toads. Frogs are smooth and slimy with long legs, while toads are bumpy, dry-skinned with shorter legs. Finally, fish are aquatic vertebrates with gills and fins. We've already discussed what gills are. Now this is how fins look. Time for another small animal vocabulary test. Clownfish. It's a swordfish. This is a herring. A seahorse. A trout. The first block of our lecture covered. Congratulations! Now, you may ask yourself, do I really need all these words? Will they be used on the TOEFL? The answer is of course. Just recently, I was going through a reading passage that mentioned the invertebrate fauna. So, let's keep going. A few other words to know are specimen. A specimen is a sample of something, such as a specimen of blood or body tissue taken for medical testing. In zoology, this word means a sample or example of an animal, often used in scientific studies. For example, a specimen of an African lion might be used to study its anatomy, behavior, or genetics. Again, a few days ago, I was analyzing a TOEFL lecture with one of my students, and there was a part about a rare insect specimen. Let's continue. Animals can be warm-blooded or cold-blooded. Warm-blooded animals are those that can maintain a nearly constant body temperature, regardless of the environment in which they live. They can also be called endotherms. Remember that endotherms are warm-blooded animals. For example, mammals and birds are endotherms. Now, cold-blooded animals are those that rely on the outside environment to regulate their body temperature. They're also called ectotherms. Ectotherms are cold-blooded animals. Some examples of ectotherms are reptiles, amphibians, and fish, which are the words we already know. Great job! The TOEFL integrated writing task likes to explore the topic of endotherms and ectotherms, and you'll often find these words in reading passages and lectures. So I suggest you write them down if you haven't heard them before. Animals can also be diurnal and nocturnal. Diurnal animals are those that are active during the day. For example, lions, squirrels, cheetahs. Nocturnal animals, as you may have guessed, are active during the night. Some common examples of nocturnal animals are owls, hedgehogs, raccoons, and bats. So diurnal is active during the day, and nocturnal is active during the night. When studying animals, scientists also examine their dietary habits. Animals can be herbivores. These are animals that eat mostly plants. Some examples of herbivores are a kangaroo, a hippopotamus, a rhinoceros, or a rhino. Carnivores. These are animals that eat other animals. Examples: anteaters, sharks, tigers, wolves. Omnivores are animals that eat both plants and animals. Some examples of omnivores are wild boars, bears, skunks, and of course humans. On the TOEFL, you'll often see mentions of carnivores, omnivores, and herbivores in lectures and reading passages. You may also see adjectives: carnivorous, omnivorous, and herbivorous. For example, carnivorous plants, herbivorous animals. If you've taken TOEFL speaking tests, you definitely see in question 4 about carnivorous plants. Now, you know that carnivorous plants are plants that catch and eat animals, usually insects, to get nutrients. When we looked at the examples of omnivores, we saw the word wild boars. Boars are wild animals. Animals can be wild or domesticated. Domesticated animals are animals that have been bred and trained by humans over generations to live with and be useful to people. Let's test how well you know domesticated animals. Some typical domesticated animals are a hen, an ox, a yak, a calf, a donkey, a cow. Now, a few wild animals are leopards. Note the pronunciation: leopard. Stags, which are male deer, and beavers. Speaking of beavers, they are rodents. This is another word you'll see a lot on the TOEFL. Rodents are mammals that have a single pair of sharp incisors, which are narrow-edged teeth at the front of their mouth, in both the upper and lower jaws. Mice, rats, squirrels, beavers, and hamsters are all rodents. So, when you hear the word rodent, remember that it's a small animal with sharp teeth. Rodents are primarily prey rather than predators. They are often hunted by various predators, including birds of prey, such as hawks and owls, carnivorous mammals, such as foxes, and even larger reptiles, like snakes. As you can see, you already know so many words. Hawks, owls, reptiles. What about prey and predators? Animals that are hunted and eaten by other animals are called prey. For example, hares are a typical example of prey. Predators are animals that hunt and eat other animals, such as wolves. Finally, let's talk about habitats. Habitats are places where animals live. Your habitat is the environment you're used to living in. Habitats can be aquatic or terrestrial. Aquatic animals live in water. Now, terrestrial animals live on land. Aquatic habitats include freshwater environments, such as lakes, rivers, or ponds, and saltwater environments, such as oceans. Freshwater animals include fish, such as trout, amphibians, such as frogs, and insects, such as water striders. Saltwater animals include sea anemones and jellyfish. Other aquatic animals include oysters, sea otters, rays, seahorses, seals, clams, squid, and sea lions. On the TOEFL, you may also find a collocation, marine animals. These animals live in the ocean or sea, not in freshwater. They're a subset of aquatic animals, but are found only in saltwater environments. Marine animals include a wide range of species, such as sharks, clownfish, whales, dolphins, seals, and starfish. Simply put, while all marine animals are aquatic, not all aquatic animals are marine. Aquatic animals can live in either fresh or salt water, while marine animals are adapted to ocean environments. Speaking of terrestrial or land animals, we've already covered many of them. Two more examples that I think are interesting to mention are a moose and a gazelle. As you can see, habitats are different environments where animals live. Some typical habitats are freshwater habitats, deserts, grasslands, wetlands, estuaries, rainforests, oceans, savannas, and coastal habitats. Ready for one last animal vocabulary check? What's this animal called? A humpback whale. All of you have probably done the integrated essay about humpback whales. If you haven't, try it. You can find it on the KMF platform, TPO 49. The next one is vultures. Amoeba. There is a cool YouTube channel called the Amoeba Sisters that I highly recommend to improve your biology vocabulary. They explain difficult concepts in a fun and easy to understand way. A baleen whale. The last animal for today is a bobcat. Congratulations! As you can see, we're closing this episode with the same word we started with. If you want to have all the words in one place, use the link below to download our free PDF file. These are 109 zoology words that will definitely help you succeed on your TOEFL test. Now it's time to practice. I highly recommend that you take a few practice TOEFL tests, and I'm 100% sure you'll see many of these words on the reading, listening, writing, and speaking sections of the exam. We're going to dive into 50 most common history terms that will help you better understand history-related topics on the TOEFL. Without further ado, Let's get started. To make learning history words easier, I've divided the words into categories. The first category is people in an ancient city. Let's imagine a typical ancient city and the people who live in it. There's a ruler, a person who leads a country, such as a king or a queen. If there is a ruler, there should also be courtiers. Courtiers are people who work in the royal court of a king, queen, or other ruler. Courtiers have important roles, such as advising the ruler, managing court events, or entertaining the royal family. There are also priests, people who work for a religion. They teach others how to pray and help people worship. In TOEFL reading passages and lectures, you'll often see the word artisan. Artisans also live in the city and are people who make things by hand. For example, they might make pottery or jewelry. If there are artisans who make things, there are also those who sell them. Merchants. Merchants buy and sell goods to make money. In the past, merchants played an important role in trade, traveling to different places to exchange items, such as spices, fabrics, or food. There are also peasants, farmers who work on land. They usually do it for someone else, like some wealthy landowners, kings, or counts. Who are counts? Counts are noblemen like dukes, but less powerful. They're important people who own land and have power over a region, and they often serve a king or emperor. Some counts may serve as colonels. A colonel is a high-ranking officer in the army. He is usually in charge of commanding a regiment or a large group of soldiers. A colonel is below a general, but above a major or a captain in most armies. When a ruler wishes to make peaceful arrangements with another ruler, he often sends delegates. Delegates are people chosen to represent others in meetings or decisions. Delegates can also act as messengers or negotiators between cities or kingdoms. However, if they fail to reach a peaceful agreement with a neighboring region, invaders may come. An invader is a person or army that enters another place to take control. They do this by force and often cause destruction in the area they invade. Before we move on to the next category, I have some exciting news. We've put together a Quizlet flashcard set of all the history terms you'll need to tackle history passages and lectures with ease. This set includes all the words we'll cover in this video and more. The great thing about Quizlet is that it helps you learn a lot of words quickly, keeps everything organized in one place, and makes reviewing super easy. Just to be clear, this is not a sponsored link. I use Quizlet myself, and many of my students use it to learn up to 100 words a day. So feel free to get the set by clicking the link down below. We offer even more sets like this as part of our TOEFL course. These sets cover all the academic topics you need to know and help you save time. You won't have to write down new words from tests, lectures, and passages to improve your academic vocabulary, as many students do. You'll be fully prepared for any TOEFL question that comes your way. If you'd like to take your preparation to the next level, just click on the link below and join our TOEFL community. Now, for the next word category, exploration. Let's go deeper into the past and talk about the first inhabitants of Canada. Inhabitants are people who live in a particular place. So the original inhabitants of Canada are the first people to live in Canada. When the European colonists came to present-day Canada, they discovered several different native tribes living there. Now, colonists are people who move to live in a new land and establish a colony there. For example, some of the first colonists to come to Canada were from Great Britain and France, and they came to discover more territories for their countries. As I mentioned earlier, they discovered different native tribes. Tribes are groups of people who live together and share customs and beliefs. Some of the tribes the colonists found were hunters and farmers. They got their food by hunting and farming. Others were hunter-gatherers. Hunter-gatherers are people who get their food by hunting animals and gathering plants. And some tribes were nomadic. These are people who do not have a permanent home, but move from place to place in search of food, water, and shelter. For example, nomadic tribes that lived in Canada followed bison herds. This means that they got their food by hunting bison. Herds, by the way, are groups of animals of the same species that live and travel together, such as cows or sheep. Going back to the colonists, their purpose was to explore new lands and build settlements, and their home countries often supported them with money and resources. Settlements are places where people build homes and live. They can range from small villages to large cities. There are different types of settlements: coastal settlements and inland settlements, or sedentary settlements and nomadic settlements. Coastal settlements are those located near the coast, typically by the ocean or sea. Inland settlements are located away from the coast, in the interior of a landmass. As for sedentary settlements, these are places where people live permanently and don't move around, while nomadic settlements, as you've probably guessed, are temporary and move from place to place. For the last word category, which I called conflict, let me tell you a story. Once upon a time, in a faraway kingdom, the people had lived under the oppression of a cruel ruler. Oppression is when people are treated unfairly or even cruelly by those in power over a long period of time. For years, the ruler had seized power and used it to control and exploit the people. To seize power is to take control of the government. To exploit means to use something or someone unfairly for one's own benefit. The people, tired of the injustice, began to revolt. To revolt is to fight against a ruler or their laws or rules. One day, a small group of citizens decided to start an uprising. An uprising is when a group of people start fighting against the government or those in power because they're unhappy with the way things are. They allied with nearby villages and began to resist the ruler's forces. To ally means to join with others for a common goal. It's like two friends getting together to help each other or work on a project together. In history, countries or groups of people might ally to fight against a common enemy or to support each other. As they fought back, the kingdom was thrown into complete upheaval, and an invasion from neighboring lands added to the chaos. An upheaval is a big, sudden change or disturbance that causes a lot of confusion or trouble. It's like when everything is turned upside down and things feel messy or chaotic. For example, when a country goes through a revolution, it can be an upheaval because everything changes quickly and a lot of people are affected. As for invasion, you already know who an invader is. So you can guess that invasion is when an army enters another place, usually to take control of it by force. The ruler tried to defeat the people, but the people were united and determined. To defeat means to win against someone in a fight. One by one, they began to conquer the ruler's castles. To conquer is to take control of a place or people by force, usually through fighting or war. The once powerful king was forced to surrender, as protests spread throughout the kingdom. To surrender is to stop fighting and give up. In the end, the people restored peace by abolishing the old regime and putting an end to the ruler's reign. To restore means to bring something back to the way it was before. To abolish is to get rid of something, like a law. A reign is the period of time when a king, queen, or ruler is in power. So the people brought back peace, got rid of the old regime, and ended the period of time when the ruler was in power. A new government was formed, one that promised freedom and equality for all. The kingdom was rebuilt, and the people lived happily, knowing that they had fought for their rights and won. The end. Doing well on the TOEFL isn't just about knowing grammar or having a big vocabulary. It's about making your answers sound like something a native speaker would say. And one way to do that is to use linking words effectively. So, today I decided to talk to you about this. We're going to see how using linking words can make a difference in the TOEFL speaking section, and discuss 16 of the most important linking words you can use. Stick around as we dive into this important skill to help you achieve your dream score. Let's get started. The first question is, what are linking words? Linking words are words or phrases that act as bridges between sentences or paragraphs. For example, and, but, so, on top of that, even if, unless, and so on. They help connect ideas smoothly and make your writing or speaking easier to understand. Adding them to your answers makes them sound less robotic. In fact, effective use of linking words improves the coherence and fluidity of the answer, making it sound more natural and easier to understand. As we just discussed, a clear and natural answer is the key to a high score. There are 3 typical mistakes TOEFL students make with linking words, and I want you to discover them for yourself. Take a look at this question. It's a typical one you might get in the first part of the TOEFL speaking section. You have 15 seconds to prepare and 45 seconds to speak. Do you agree or disagree with the following statement? If you want to succeed in business, being outgoing and friendly is very important. Now listen to my first answer and tell me what you think. I agree with the statement that being outgoing and friendly is important for success in business. It helps in building rapport with clients, colleagues, and customers. This can lead to better negotiations and opportunities. My boss is a very sociable person. He makes business connections easily. This has allowed him to expand his business and find many business partners. Being outgoing and friendly creates a positive work environment and makes networking easier. We always have a friendly environment at work. We know we can trust each other. As you can see, the first mistake is to avoid connecting words altogether. Not only does it make your answer sound robotic and strained, but it also does not allow you to elaborate on your ideas. Use complex and compound sentences and connect your ideas logically. You'd be surprised, but in my one-on-one sessions, I often see advanced students who are so stressed about staying on time that they forget even the most basic linking words, such as also, but, and so. Answer 2. In my opinion, I strongly agree with the statement that being outgoing and friendly is crucial for success in business, as effective communication and relationship building are fundamental pillars in the realm of business. First and foremost, being outgoing and friendly promotes positive interactions with clients, customers, and colleagues. Furthermore, a friendly disposition contributes to a conducive work environment. In addition, such individuals are adept at diffusing tensions and resolving conflicts amicably, thus fostering a harmonious workplace culture. However, it is important to recognize that success in business requires a multifaceted approach. I won't go any further because I think you can see my second point. Mistake number 2, using formal linking words. The thing is, if you go online and search for linking word lists, you will see both formal and informal linking words mixed together. This is why many students use words like moreover, nevertheless, and to exemplify in their answers, thinking it will increase their score. But it won't. Native speakers don't converse this way. So save these formal alternatives for the writing section and focus instead on the linking words used in spoken English. The same answer also sheds light on the third mistake: using linking words incorrectly. Some students try to use as many of them as possible. They literally start every single sentence with a linking word. Others simply use them incorrectly. Either way, the result is often that their answers sound forced and unnatural. And remember, sounding natural is the most important thing to focus on. So, make sure you sprinkle your answers with 2 to 3 informal linking words instead of stuffing them with tons of formal ones. This will not only help you sound natural in the first question of the speaking section, but it will also help you express your ideas well on the second third and fourth tasks of the test. For example, by starting your sentences with while, even if, unless, even though, you can create complex sentences that will allow you to convey the same message more quickly and give you enough time to include many details from the recording. Now that we're getting to the linking words themselves, your mini assignment is to watch the lesson carefully and write down the ones you find most useful. You don't have to learn and use them all. Just pick 3 to 5 linking words you feel comfortable using in your answers. Then, answer this question using the linking words you learned. Feel free to share your responses in the comments below. And remember that simply adding linking words to your answers isn't enough to get a high score. There are a number of other important factors to consider. If you're about to take the test and want to find out what you're doing wrong and how you can score higher, enroll in our TOEFL prep course and have your speaking and writing responses evaluated. The promo code link is below. Let's begin. The first 5 linking words that you definitely know are first, second, also, but, and so. I don't need to explain how to use them, but I want to emphasize that even though they're very basic, I still highly recommend using them in your answers. For example, you can say, I agree that being outgoing and friendly is the key to success in business. First, when you're friendly, it's easier to connect with people like clients and colleagues, which helps build trust and can lead to more opportunities. Successful entrepreneurs like Steve Jobs are often known for their exceptional ability to communicate and build relationships. Also, a friendly atmosphere at work promotes teamwork and makes everyone happier. Getting back to the Steve Jobs example, his charismatic charm allowed him to connect with people on a personal level, which helped him inspire and motivate his team by fostering a sense of loyalty and commitment among employees. So yes, being outgoing and friendly is a big deal in business. As you can see, using even such basic transitions as first, also, and so can help you build an effective response. Let's look at some more linking words. For example, to illustrate. To give examples, use for example or to illustrate. I could have said, for example, successful entrepreneurs like Steve Jobs are often known for their exceptional ability to communicate and build relationships. You can also just use the linking words like or such as I did in my example. Successful entrepreneurs like Steve Jobs, or successful entrepreneurs such as Steve Jobs. The next few linking words are unless, even if, while, and even though. I find them especially useful in the integrated speaking section. Imagine you have to summarize a lecture in 60 seconds. You should include a lot of details. But as you go, you feel like you're running out of time. A great solution is to introduce complex, compound, and complex compound sentences. This will help you say the same thing in a much shorter way. Let's look at a few examples taken from answers to integrated speaking questions. Even though children may not know how to behave at first, they soon learn that bad behavior is punished and good behavior is rewarded. Number 2. Also, the buses only run once an hour, which means that even if the bus service is introduced, it won't be as effective as riding a bicycle because students will end up wasting too much time waiting for the next bus. Number 3. So, unless a car works the way it's supposed to and lasts a long time without breaking down, it's considered unreliable. Number 4. While the health center does need more doctors, it's tiny and there is simply not enough space to accommodate them. If you want to explain the reason or cause for something, you can use that's why and as a result. For example, I've been making an effort to prioritize sleep. That's why I feel more refreshed and focused during the day. Or, as a result, I struggled to keep up with my coursework and ended up turning in many assignments at the last minute. Finally, to add another point, you can simply use also or use on top of that. I already have a lot on my plate with work, school, and family responsibilities to take care of. On top of that, I have to deal with stress of planning my sister's wedding, which is adding even more pressure. Using linking words effectively can significantly improve your score on the writing section of the TOEFL test. Not only does it allow you to use a variety of sentence structures, it also helps you demonstrate consistent language skills and explain your ideas well. But do you need to learn a lot of connectors? Not really. In fact, for both the integrated essay and the writing for an academic discussion task, you only need a limited number of connectors for a perfect score. What's more, if you use too many of them, or use ones that are too formal, such as nevertheless, furthermore, to exemplify, you could lose points because it won't sound natural. So, my first tip: only use the linking words you are 100% sure of. If you don't think you can use that linking word in a natural and effective way, it's better to avoid it. What are the 18 linking words you really need to ace the writing section of the TOEFL test? In this lesson, we are going to discuss 18 essential linking words for acing the TOEFL writing section. If your TOEFL exam is coming up and you need a guide to help you successfully prepare for it, check out our TOEFL prep book. There, you'll learn everything you need to know to succeed on the TOEFL exam, presented in a clear, easy to understand, and fun way. You'll understand the 4 sections of the test, master all the types of questions in the reading section, and learn how to tackle them. Find out how to sharpen your listening skills, ace the writing section, and develop speaking fluency. We've also added an extra chapter to review the necessary grammar and vocabulary that will help you with both the writing and speaking sections, and another with test day tips and strategies. The promo code link is in the description below. Now, what are linking words? These are words or phrases that act as bridges between sentences or paragraphs. For example, and, but, so, unless, even if, and so on. They help connect ideas smoothly and make your writing or speaking easier to understand. As I just mentioned, you don't have to force linking words into your sentences. However, if you do use one, make sure you add the word you know well. And that was just the first example of a perfect linking word for the writing section. So, number 1 is however. It means even so or on the other hand, and is often used to introduce a complication, contrast, or contradiction. You can start a sentence with however, as I did, or you can use it to create compound sentences by connecting 2 contrasting ideas. For example, he studied hard, however, he failed the exam. The movie got rave reviews, however, I found it disappointing. Another example, however, it's important to recognize the challenges associated with integrating technology into education. I love to use this linking word in integrated essays because it's so good and universal and allows you to contrast the reading passage and the lecture. When you include the lecturer's opinion, you can write, the lecturer, however, disagrees and says that. For example, intelligence has nothing to do with star navigation. If I'm writing a post about the negative aspects of smartphones, I might write something like this. In today's fast-paced society, technological advances have revolutionized various aspects of human life, increasing convenience and connectivity. Smartphones, for example, have become ubiquitous tools for communication and access to information. However, while these innovations offer numerous benefits, they also present challenges that society must address. For those who don't know, the word ubiquitous means everywhere. As you can see, the use of however in this paragraph helps to move the discussion from the positive aspects of smartphones to the potential drawbacks, creating a balanced and nuanced argument. You can also see that we use for example in this post, which brings us to the next 2 words, for example and for instance. We use these words to give examples. Many students try to replace these linkers with less common alternatives, such as to exemplify, to illustrate, namely, and so on. I wouldn't recommend this. First, you might use them incorrectly and lose points. Second, they're a bit too formal for the kind of writing we do on the TOEFL test. You can start a sentence with for example or for instance, or use them in the middle of a sentence. Many countries have begun to address the problem of pollution. For example, Singapore has implemented strict regulations and promoted public transportation, or many countries have introduced strict regulations to reduce air pollution. For instance, China has imposed limits on industrial emissions and promoted the use of electric vehicles. We can also use the linking words like or such as to give examples. Through platforms like Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, people can keep in touch with friends and family, share updates about their lives, and engage in meaningful conversations. Let's look at another example from one of the integrated essays. Most of these materials, such as building materials, sand, stones, and even construction tools, are not what you would expect from ceremonies. If you want to add information that supports what you've already said, use moreover or in addition. For example, let's say I'm discussing the benefits of technology in education. As I write about it, I can use moreover or in addition to add new points. Online courses and educational platforms give students from all backgrounds access to high-quality learning materials and instruction. In addition, digital resources such as ebooks, educational applications, and online tutorials provide supplemental support for students, allowing them to deepen their understanding of complex concepts at their own pace. Or, in addition, technology has transformed the classroom environment, making learning more interactive and engaging. I could go on and on about the benefits and add, moreover, technology has empowered educators to personalize learning experiences to meet the needs of individual students. Another thing we often need when writing is to show the result or consequence of something. In this case, you can use as a result and therefore. The reason I love them is that they are versatile and can be used in a variety of contexts to show causality or logical consequence. The company implemented cost-cutting measures, and as a result, several employees were laid off. Learning to do household chores prepares young people for their future lives as adults. Therefore, those who were taught to do housework as children will find it easier to transition to independent life when they start living on their own. The next few words are although, while, and even though. These subordinate conjunctions allow us to create complex sentences that are so helpful in the writing section, especially when you need to say a lot of things in a short and concise way. We use these conjunctions to introduce a subordinate clause that contains a statement that contrasts with the main clause statement. My absolute favorite of these three is while, because it's so universal and easy to use in both writing and speaking. Let's look at some examples. An example from an integrated essay. While the reading argues that humpback whales navigate by the stars, the lecturer finds this theory unconvincing. Here, we have while at the beginning of the sentence. We can also put it in the middle of the sentence. The reading argues that humpback whales navigate by the stars, while the lecturer finds this theory unconvincing. A few more examples. Even though she was exhausted, she stayed up late to finish her project. Although he had prepared well for the presentation, he felt nervous when he got up in front of the audience. Although some argue that young people should live with their families as long as possible, I believe that it's more beneficial for them to live independently. The other two linking words we can use to introduce contrasting or opposing ideas are in contrast and on the other hand. I often use them in the integrated essay, where you have to contrast the lecture with the text. You can always write On the other hand, the lecturer states that, or in contrast, the lecturer's position is that, and give their opinion. Last but not least are the linking words but, so, also, and. Even though you know them well and think they're too basic, I'd say they're the most important linking words out there, so don't forget to use them in your essays. For example, she wanted to travel abroad, but she couldn't afford the plane tickets, so she was forced to stay at home. That wraps up our video for today. Thanks for watching. If you want to master all 4 sections of the TOEFL exam and get a great score on test day, click the link below. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more tips and tricks on the TOEFL test. Remember, scoring 100+ on the TOEFL isn't rocket science. It's the little things you do that make all the difference. As always, I wish you all a stellar TOEFL score. Until next time!